University. Additional funding is provided by the North Carolina Nursery and Landscape Association and the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, presenting TarHeelGardening.com, your online gardening resource for North Carolina plants, professional advice, and more. And by Appalachian Naturescapes, custom landscape designs specializing in Blue Ridge native landscape themes, from intimate gardens to elaborate outdoor living spaces. AppalachianNaturescapes.com. Also by the North Carolina Sod Producers Association, representing sod growers throughout the state who produce quality turf grasses to meet a variety of residential, commercial, and recreational turf grass needs. ncsod.org.
Coming up, choosing and caring for North Carolina sodgrass in all regions of the state. Next. Hi, welcome to In the Garden. I'm Bryce Lane. When it comes to lawns in North Carolina, the type of grass you grow depends primarily on where you live and how much time you want to spend taking care of it. On today's show, we'll visit a sod farm in the western part of the state and learn more about the expertise of the North Carolina sod producers. Then I'll tackle the task of laying a bit of sod all on my own. Well, this is Fred Patillo, who is the founder of Turf Mountain Sod Farm. And Fred, I know you said that you've been involved in growing turf for 26 years, but I know that that's not where the farm started. So how about telling us about the history of this farm?
The farm started in the mid-30s with my mom and dad. They started with 5 old cows tied to trees. Then we built a parlor, and we actually milked cows till 92. We all had to work. My dad had 4 boys and a girl. The theory back then was you needed to grow workers, and they were pretty prolific at doing that.
Right. Oh, wow.
So,
and you went to NC State.
Yes.
In the Agricultural Institute, right?
In 1960, Dr. Homer Folks visited with us at the farm in the little house we grew up in, and convinced me and my parents that it would be a good deal for me to go to the Ag Institute, get those 2 years of schooling, and it's probably one of the best moves I've ever made. Mm-hmm. It not only helped me academically with the things I needed, but it taught me how to get away from a farm that I grew up on and how to get along with folks. Right. That's important.
Right. Now you came back to the farm.
Yeah.
How did you get from a dairy farm to a sod farm?
Mr. Need knocked at my door. The dairy was really a tight economic situation. We never could quite get ahead enough to the way we were situated, so I tried sod. We planted about 4 acres one February and started harvesting it in June. I knew it would work. We were old dairy farm workers. We didn't know anything but go get it done. And we installed a lot of sod. I was not going to compete with our landscape friends because I didn't want to take work from them. But most of them didn't know at the time, in 87, 88, about sod. We actually, installation grew faster than our sod farm did.
Wow.
We still had the dairy to do. And so the installation took off, and we actually bought sod from other areas in order to do golf courses.
Sure.
Golf courses were really moving at the time.
Absolutely.
And we did several golf courses, and it was exciting.
Oh, I bet. Now, how many acres do you have now in sod production?
We have between 500 and 600 now. Mm-hmm. We actually got up to 1,500.
Wow.
You know what happened economically about 08 and 09 and along through there. And so cutting back was tough. Growing was fairly easy. You had money coming, you could grow. Now we're 500 or 600 acres of sod and 1,000 acres of soybean.
Wow. Now, where does all this sod go? I mean, what's your market?
Generally, our market area is from Charlotte to maybe Winston once in a while. Tri-Cities, the mountain range at Boone, the mountain range at Highlands, back around to the Atlanta, Spartanburg, Greenville area, kind of the transition zone to the mountains.
Now, how many different types of grass do you grow?
I want to grow in two now. This is the Black Beauty fescue blue mix, and we have straight bluegrass. There's still a need for some straight bluegrass for some of the golf courses, and some homeowners want straight blue.
But for the most part, fescue is the
Fescue,
standard cool
yes.
season.
Yes, it is.
Right.
It's a little bit tougher, seems to be. Managed properly, you can see how it looks.
So harvesting is mechanically done, rolled up, and put on pallets, right?
Yeah, our first harvesting was with that walk behind sod harvest, down on your hands and knees, rolling it up, putting it on the pallet. Today, I hardly know when we harvest because I don't do any anymore hardly. and some of the new innovative harvesters are, one man can just harvest a tremendous amount of sod.
Well, that's exciting. Fred, thank you very much for telling us about your operation. We look forward to looking around and watching some harvesting, and interesting to know that you can't grow much of anything without working hard.
Hey, you're welcome.
North Carolina has a very diverse and unique climate when it comes to growing turfgrass. We have 3 distinct regions: mountains, Piedmont, and coastal plain. And David, I know that presents some challenges when it comes to choosing what types of turfgrass home gardeners might want to put in their yard. Tell us a little bit about the difference between those 3 regions and what you might choose.
In the mountainous region here in western North Carolina, primarily cool season grass, be it bluegrass or fescue and bluegrass blend. Then when you move to the transition zone or toward the Piedmont, the middle part of the state, you can choose between the fescue in the cool season or Bermuda or zoysia in the warm season.
Now the choice there, I know that with the cool season, you're going to have that green color through the winter season, whereas with the warm season, what's the difference there as far as dormancy?
The warm season in the dormancy, from the frost beginning in the fall until the last frost in the late spring, it's going to be brown during the dormancy. The cool season will be green during that time. The warm season, when the frost finishes in the late spring, will begin to green up and will be healthy, beautiful green grass through the warm season of the summer. Now the warm season in the transition zone is hard on the fescue. The fescue will struggle some, especially in July and August under 100-degree heat. However, with irrigation and with the water, the fescue will do very well. But the fescue struggles in the midsummer, just like the warm season goes dormant in the winter.
So you got a choice there. And now the coastal plain.
Coastal plain would be on into the St. Augustine, Bahia, the stuff that can handle more than 100 days of 100-degree heat.
Now when it comes to choosing turfgrass types and sod and installation and all that, there are experts that are worth consulting, is that correct?
Yes. Who better to ask for your grass advice than your North Carolina sod producers? We have a North Carolina Sod Producers Association. We are throughout the state of North Carolina. The North Carolina sod producers take care of the best grass for their particular community and their climate. They're the ones that make a living growing natural North Carolina grass. North Carolina State University turf grass has been, we call ourselves first in turf in the United States because they do such a great job with research and the development in North Carolina with the cool season as well as the warm season. The North Carolina State University Turfgrass Group are the ones where we get a majority of our information to help us to grow the grass in North Carolina. Also, North Carolina has a certified turfgrass professional program, and there are up toward 100 certified North Carolina turfgrass professionals. So the certified turfgrass professional is trained and able to answer your questions. That doesn't mean that the certified professionals know all the answers, because we don't. We just know who to go to help us with the answers.
Right. So as a home gardener, we can rest assured that the information that the sod producers provide, Turfgrass Council, that everyone provides that information that's research-based and it's most current.
Yes.
It's important to do that. All right, so I'm thinking about creating a small area of turf in my front yard, and maybe a lot of home gardeners might be thinking about the same thing. They've never thought about sod. And maybe we could take a look at a couple rolls of sod and talk about what would be involved in doing it yourself. I see you've got some sod here. Now this is fescue.
This is fescue.
Okay. And so when it comes to installation, if you had a smaller and you want to do it yourself rather than hiring a professional installer to come in and do it, what would you need to be thinking about?
Okay, first of all, if you're alongside of a sidewalk or existing grass, you want your grass level to be at the same level as your concrete or existing grass, so that you blend in with the grass, so that when you mow, you can't tell the transition line of the two.
Okay.
On the slope, we want to make sure that we break the joints like you were laying brick. We have sod staples that we can staple that grass down if we need to, depending on the severity of the slope. Then the most important thing is the fertility, the lime, the fertilizer underneath it, so that your soil pH will be balanced. That way your grass will take up the fertility as it needs it. Normally we recommend a 50% slow release fertilizer so that we extend the fertility to the grass over a period, so that it's not just an agricultural grade fertilizer, so that you get all that you have in a short period of time. It is really important too that you put water as soon as you get the grass down. You want to get your water on, not so much so that when you step on it, it's squishy underneath you. You don't want it to be muddy, but you want to be able to pull the corner of the grass up and see that you have moisture down into the root zone of the plant. Normally the first couple of weeks that you put the grass in, you're going to need to water depending on the temperature every day to every other day until you get it grown in. Then once you get it beginning to grow in, you can back off on the water to every third day, every fourth day. Normally it's going to take somewhere in the neighborhood of about an inch of water on cool season grass or warm season grass through the heat of the summer. And we suggest that you put that on just about daybreak or just before daybreak.
Very good. Well, that's some good tips. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Whether you're planting grass seed, plugs, or sod, the key to successful turf in the home landscape is soil preparation and the proper light exposure. Now let's talk about soil. It's so important to know what kind of soil you have. And there are two ways that you can get more information about your soil. One way is to evaluate the soil profile, and that's where this soil probe comes in. This is a relatively inexpensive tool that allows you to look at the soil vertically without having to dig a hole. And you can stick this into the ground and pull it out and evaluate your soil. Let me show you how it's done. You take the soil probe, push down, and you push as far as you can go. Now if you hit a rock, you may be stuck. That's okay. Pull it out, and now take a look. This is the soil profile that I have before it wouldn't go any further. And if you look here at the top, you can see that deep, rich, dark black color. That's what you call the O horizon, or the organic layer. And that's the result of mulching that I've done for a number of years. Go a little bit further and you can see the soil changes color. It gets a little bit lighter, and that's more of a topsoil, subsoil mix. That's where the roots are going to pretty much stop growing, because roots grow where there's water and oxygen. Look down here at the bottom. You can see how much lighter it gets. It's almost a bit light beige color. That's definitely subsoil, and roots generally don't grow in subsoil. So this soil is not too bad for growing turf. However, I might want to mix in some more organic matter or soil conditioner to help enrich that top layer. But I've learned all that just by taking the soil probe, and it's a good way to evaluate soils, not just for turfgrass areas, but also for landscape beds. All right, now that's evaluating what kinds of soils that you have in that profile. What about fertility and pH? Because those two are very important for growing turf. That's where a soil test comes in. Now, the North Carolina Department of Agriculture offers a soil testing service. And you can go online and look at their website, and you can pull off a registration form where you fill that out. But then you get the soil test kit boxes from your local county extension office. Pick those up, and this is how you do the soil test. You're going to need to fill this box up with soil at a number of different locations where you intend to grow your turf. And so it's important to take a shovel, or in this case I'm using a soil knife, and dig a hole. You don't want to use the soil right on the tip, but maybe about 3 or 4 inches down. And there you can see I'm getting down into that area. Take some of the soil and place it in the box. More soil in the box. A couple of scoops of soil into the box, go on to the next location, do the same thing, and fill the box up. Now you bring the box to your county extension office or to the North Carolina Department of Agriculture Soil Test Lab on Blue Ridge Road. They'll evaluate it, send you an email, and it'll tell you exactly how much fertilizer to put for that area that you intend to grow sod, as well as lime to adjust the pH. It's a great service, and it's very important to do. Now, if you intend to plant your seed or sod in the fall, I would do a soil test in the spring. That way you've got plenty of lead time to prep your soil and be ready to plant. As gardeners, we don't necessarily need to have turf grass planted all through our yard. Effective use of turf involves selecting smaller areas that can be accented with green. In essence, use turf as a ground cover. In addition, the advantage is we can install those places ourselves and even use sod in an affordable way. Now, if you look here, I have a large area of mulch that is pine strawed with a border around the outside. Now, when people come to visit, they park their cars in this area, so I still want to use it as a car park. But if you'll notice, I've got an area of hose that I've laid down, identifying a kidney bean shaped area that I want to use turf as a ground cover. I've got sod, and I'm going to install it right there. Now remember, a hose is a great little tool for the garden for identifying where you want to put garden beds, ground covers, and in this case, even turf grass. Now it's just a matter of following a step-by-step process for installation. The first step is to identify the space where the sod will go. After removing the pine straw, I'll use a landscape marking spray paint to outline the area before removing the hose. The next step involves preparing the soil. Using the NCDA soil test report as my guide, I add the recommended rates of fertilizer and lime. Now, if you don't have an NCDA soil test report, a general recommendation is 4 pounds of 10-10-10 fertilizer per 100 square feet of sod area, and 7 to 10 pounds of ground limestone per 100 square feet. Cultivate the soil using a shovel or a spade. In my case, I chose a rototiller to break up the soil and incorporate my fertilizer and lime. Rake the sod bed smooth and flat. Now it's ready to be installed. The sod I'm using is a blend of cool season grasses, 3 different types of fescue, and a little bit of bluegrass. Now my area is partially sunny and partially shady, so a cool season grass of that mix will work just fine. Special thanks to Matt Parrish of Sodco in Raleigh, who donated the sod. Matt is an NC State grad of the Turfgrass program in the Agricultural Institute. Each piece of sod is 30 inches by 18 inches. And for my project, which is approximately 80 square feet, I'll use about 20 to 24 pieces of sod. When installing sod, make sure the roots are in complete contact with the soil. Be sure to stagger your seams so they never line up side by side. Cut the sod to the designated shape using a straight edge spade or a soil knife. I've chosen a special cultivator with a very sharp edge to cut my sod. When you're finished installing the sod, flatten it with your feet, or you can use the back end of a rake. Water the sod thoroughly and irrigate often, ensuring that your lawn gets a minimum of 1 inch per week. Well, I've completed the project and I think you can see how much it's enhanced this landscape. Cars will still be able to park in this area, and if a tire gets on the grass, that's okay. The turf will continue to grow. Not only that, but I think you can see how this green ground cover area really enhances the plant bed behind. Now, I know many of you might be wondering how much work was really involved. Well, this is a one-person job, although it would go a little bit quicker with two, but from start to finish, it was about 2 hours. As far as cost, the sod, fertilizer, and lime was only about $75, and that's not a lot of money for an enhancement project like this. So think about possibly incorporating turf grass in your own landscape in areas where you don't have grass, but use it as a ground cover, and you too can have an enhanced landscape just like this. Whether you seed or sod your new lawn area, long-term success depends on how well you care for it. And when it comes to lawn care, there are 3 basic areas you need to be concerned about: watering, fertilizing, and mowing. Now, when it comes to watering, most lawns, warm season or cool season, require about 1 inch per week. Between rainfall and irrigation, that's what you need to shoot for. And if you irrigate, you want to split that recommendation out 2 times a week in order to get good saturation. When it comes to fertilizing, most lawns, cool season or warm season, need about 2 to 3 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. Well, how does that translate? That translates into about 10 pounds of 10-10-10 per 100 square feet, and you can work it from there. You want to remember to split your applications to 2 times of the year, once in September and once in February, and that's basically the recommendation for most cool season grasses. Now, when it comes to mowing, you need to have a good mower, mulching mower, which will chop up those clippings very small and allow the clippings to compost back into the turf. Remember, the higher you mow, the deeper the roots grow. So if you mow high, most cool season grasses need about 2.5 to 3 inches tall. And I realize that's a little bit tall, but if you do that, the roots will spread a little bit deeper and it'll conserve moisture and make that turf grass tougher. So you want to mow high and remember to allow those clippings to compost. Composted clippings can reduce your fertilizer requirements by 20 to 30%. Then you don't have to add as much fertilizer. Remember to do a soil test once every other year once your turf is established in order to get the right recommendations for lime and fertilizer. And lastly, you can go to this website, ncsod.org, to get more information about all your turf care needs. Our plant of the week was suggested to us by many of the people that visited my garden on the Garden Conservancy Tour this past weekend. Send in your suggestions for a plant of the week to our website or our Facebook page, and if we use it on the show, we'll send you an In the Garden t-shirt. Well, they just gushed over this ornamental grass. It's called Calamagrostis brachytricha. It's the Korean feather reed grass. Now that's a mouthful on both ends, but it's well worth putting in your garden. Here's an herbaceous perennial that grows about 2 to 3 feet tall with typical grass-like leaves. You can see I've got it planted in a mass planting here of 3 plants. Now it'll grow and it'll take about 3 years to get established, but at the end of that 3rd year in the summer and into the fall, look what you get. These beautiful plumes of inflorescence that are white with a little bit of pink tinge depending on how the sun hits. And oh, it's a showstopper in the garden, especially late in the day when the sun shines from low in the sky. Now here's a plant that'll enjoy full sun, but I've got it planted here with a western exposure, so it gets late afternoon sun and early morning shade, and it still does well in a partially sunny location. The other claim to fame of this plant is that it does very well in clay soil. So if you've got an area that doesn't drain very well, you might consider using the Korean feather reed grass. It's great for a perennial border, mass planting, and a mixed border. It's a wonderful plant of the week. Calamagrostis brachytricha, the Korean feather reed grass. Well, that's all the time we have for this week. So until next time, I'll be looking for you in the garden.
To register for In the Garden, the course, call NC State's Distance Education Program at 1-866-GO-STATE. That's 1-866-467-8283. Or log on to distance.ncsu.edu. For more information about the program or to suggest a plant of the week, go to unctv.org/inthegarden.
Funding for In the Garden is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV, and by North Carolina State University. Additional funding is provided by the North Carolina Nursery and Landscape Association and the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, presenting TarHeelGardening.com, your online gardening resource for North Carolina plants, professional advice, and more. And by Appalachian Naturescapes, custom landscape designs specializing in Blue Ridge native landscape themes, from intimate gardens to elaborate outdoor living spaces. AppalachianNaturescapes.com. Also by the North Carolina Sod Producers Association, representing sod growers throughout the state who produce quality turf grasses to meet a variety of residential, commercial, and recreational turf grass needs. ncsod.org.